All right, guys, so we're going to do a QA video. I'm going to try to keep this one quick, but it's easily a runaway topic. So the main question was, this guy's working on a vehicle, and he's trying to figure out how to alleviate the tension here in this area. So we're going to focus on that, and we're going to talk about the model in general. So first, these reference images, I'm just going to hide them because I don't have them, so they're just pink right now. And we'll turn this to a different mat cap. This model itself has non-uniform scale. When you're modeling, apply scale so it's all ones, or at least that it's all uniform. They're all the same numbers. That's the most important thing there. But I'm going to Control A, apply rotation and scale so that my tools work a little bit better. And now we're going to get into this little area here real quick. So first thing, this type of intersection here. So usually your mesh density is going to be based off your smallest intersections. If you're trying to keep perfect quads, that is. Otherwise, you're going to be doing redirects or reducing the edge flows if you can in certain areas, but that creates a lot of different poles, and so it becomes a little bit problematic. But this intersection, you don't really need to use this one. This is better if you had like a plane level change. You might use that. But if we don't have that going on, we could take this vertex and merge it to that one, and this one to that one, and that simplifies this area a little bit. So this edge becomes redundant. We don't need it. And the same is true for the one on the top here. So we can just control click around, control exit, and remove them real quick. Let's just go ahead and merge these real quick. We'll merge these two and merge that to that. All right, so now we have kind of an option here. We have these two edges wrapping around to the back. If we let it go upwards here and we want to turn it into quads, we'll send this one up like that. Otherwise, we can actually send this one down and it also turns it into a quad. So it's like a little switch track. But we're going to do, and I think in our case, going up would be the better bet. So we'll just go up real quick with it. Turn this off in edit mode real quick. Okay, the modifiers are off in edit mode. Now we just balance it if we need to. And so we're trying to create quads, squares, right? Like that's the main idea when you're doing subdivision. That's what is going to work best on, especially vehicles when you're having like really nice reflections in the surfaces and stuff. You want to have like really nice, evenly made quads. And for this piece over here, we're going to start realizing something very fast. That if we go this route, this is already going to be denser as far as like the quad density, right? The resolution of the mesh. This area is now denser. These are very, very big quads. These are smaller quads. So at some point, we're probably going to have to break these quads into smaller pieces. And that's where it becomes problematic because now we're going to be running a bunch of edge loops and we get this nonsense going on. So a lot of times when you're working on meshes like this, you may be starting with them at too low of a resolution. This was made off of this main body panel here. And when we look at the main body panel compared to this, you can see the similarities there anyways. And that's pretty much why it looks that way. Actually, it might not even be made off of it, is it? Whatever the case. So here, at some point, we're going to have to go through this whole mesh. And if we start working it from this corner out, we're going to find exactly that going on, basically. Like, we're going to find that it starts to require more and more density. And you don't have this problem as much on the main body panels, perhaps, because there are not as many tight intersections. Not always the case, but a lot of times there are. And we'll find that we can start working it out a little bit. And we can fluctuate the density if we do redirects or if we were to reduce edge flows and things like that. But eventually we can get things going here. And I was trying to make a quad there, but that didn't work out quite the way I thought it was going to. So, and we'll pull that up. So even up here, like we're going to start running edges over this top section here. And we got just one big edge through here. So that means this is going to get broken up how many times? Because maybe we need, I don't know, how many times are we going to break this up into little quads? Right? They're shooting forward right now, but we'd probably want them going up more so than forward. Not that you can't send them forward because you can send them through here, but then we have another one right behind it at a different angle. So you're going to start like spreading them around it probably or through it. And that's not maybe what we want. So little things like that start to add up. So KCA, you know, you might have to start breaking these like this instead. And as a result, like this stays a quad here. Now we got a triangle. And if we toss an edge out of the back of it, it becomes a quad like that. And now we got another weird quad kind of right there, but we can space these with like loop tools maybe. / a second to isolate it. So you might be able to start spacing these with loop tools. And you can see that's just going to keep them more balanced. So if it doesn't look right, it's a good odd chance that you'll have to go through and correct the edges and things. It could be a runaway train, like I was saying. Like, so we're going to start working this. Usually diagonals like this, they start with some kind of triangle or a triquad, and then we work them out. In our case here, I feel like another one up here would be good. Send it this way, send it that way. A triangle. This is still a quad technically. Merge those. We got an N-gon. Cut it through. And this up over here. We're just trying to find some kind of balance here that we like. That works for us, basically. It's easier said than done. I'll put it that way. So you can end up with a lot of poles in your geo. Or, you know, if you work it really deliberately, you might end up with a lot less as well. So it's just a little tricky area to control. And as we go through with all this, yeah, we run into that same problem over and over. Like, we're going to need more edges. This was why a lot of guys like to start with like creases and a mesh that they crease, and then they subdivide it and apply the subdivision so they don't run into as many issues like this. I think this is okay-ish. It's working okay-ish here, but it definitely could be better. See, that creates some nice quads there. We will probably at some point, like I was saying, have a triangle or triquad. So that's more than likely going to happen somewhere like up here, maybe. I can go to the bottom there. Now we got like a triangle on a triangle. Try to send it over the top of it, redirect it a little bit, right? Maybe we can get away with that. So now that's going to have much less poles in it. And we'll keep doing that, basically. We're going to have to figure out how to do that over here and make it all work out. It's going to take some time. It definitely is hard to do if you're not real proficient at subdivision modeling yet. So doing vehicles, exotic supercars, for example, are some of the hardest things you can do, because you're going to start realizing that you got to do a lot of stuff like this. And it's just, it doesn't go as simple as you would like it to anyways. Like now this one wants to run around through the back. We end up with a triangle over here. And this one we could probably shift to there and attach that to there. I don't think we quite finished that section. But I think that might have just fixed that little issue we had. Okay, so this edge was running up, and we usually want to try, if possible, to get an edge to connect back to itself. Right? And in our case, it's now doing that. I don't think it was before. So that was a little bit of a problem. This area down here, we might get away with just extending a little bit further and running maybe to over here or something like that. Is it quite doing what we need to do? No. Can we maybe create a triquad like that? Yeah. Now we got an extra edge running through here. So maybe use these as holding edges for the corners. Need them. So yeah, your topology can vary. Like there's like dozens and dozens of ways that you can end up with different kind of edge flows or solutions. I mean, it's not like one size fits all. Like this here, for example, wants to create another edge going out this way. If we try to fix this whole thing and increase the resolution across the whole mesh, we'll be here for a minute trying to get all that done. So we may not want to do that necessarily for this video anyways. It's kind of like when you're learning the lesson, right? Like teacher gives you a block of instructions, shows you some examples and stuff, and then they give you a workbook or something like that. and you got to go through and practice it. That's what this is. Like when you're modeling, you're actually doing the modeling. You're not following the tutorials anymore. You're trying to actually, work it out as you're doing. That's a little bit different. It's you can end up with multiple, like most of the time you have like a correct answer. There's no necessarily 100% correct answer when it comes to 3D. It just depends on like the needs of the model, whether it's like VFX or high poly that you're going to bake to a low poly for a game. For that situation, the poles don't matter that much for baking purposes. Like generally they don't. But for a VFX asset, it might be a big deal if it has better or worse topo. Like if I bevel this area, profile 1, segments 2, gives us that tight bevel like that. And so that'll hold that area a little bit nicer. But now these poles, they're all flat, so they're not really hurting anything necessarily. Might work out just fine. Now this particular piece, I know because just looking at it here that more than likely this is going to be some kind of carbon fiber thing that a lot of exotics do. They have like the hood and then the carbon fiber is exposed here, some kind of plastic or something. And that's okay, but it's just the main idea here is that it's going to have good reflections in this area mostly. Like obviously good reflections everywhere is super important, but you see like the flat areas don't get as influenced as much, I would say. So as long as you're creating the right shapes for these little pieces here, like obviously this one's squared out, that one's rounded now because we had those extra edges. We'd want to go through and, well, round it out manually if we have to. So that would mean like a G shift, G shift, E shift, Y, I think. Move those around and create a rounding effect if needed. And that'll do that. Now, the big question, I know somebody's going to ask about it here in a second. It's already looking pretty good, actually, but obviously we haven't finished it. We have edges that we got to run through this whole area. So now our real problem becomes, do we find a way to reduce these and just, accept the fact that we're going to have big elongated rectangular pieces? Or do we keep subdividing it and make it in a higher density? That's where you got to make your judgment calls here on what you're going to do. In our case here, I really think we should run some of these out, but when we do that, this whole area becomes a giant mess anyways. You can take models and you can work them in separate parts a lot of times as either, well, you can separate them into different objects, right? Like we can just press P, separate selection, put it into a new object, and there we go. But we can also do some fun things like we can maybe press right click, we can do split. And we have all of this selected now. Oop, let's make sure we get all of it. What did I miss? Let's try splitting it again, see what that was. All right, there you go. So something like this, for example, if we just split it out real quick, we can subdivide manually here, right? In edit mode. We can turn smoothing on, and sometimes it corrects the shape the way you want. Sometimes it doesn't really do it. But you might get away with it sometimes, especially on like flat planes and stuff. You can see here it really messes our edge. So that's not going to work out. This is where you might split it to a separate object. Take that subdivision. Make sure you check keep corners. Otherwise it rounds them. Okay. And then maybe like a level 1 subdivision and apply it. Okay. And later on, you'll be able to bring this and join them back together at some point. But this is kind of a good practice to get used to because like obviously this edge is not going to work for us. This edge, no. We'd be able to work some more of that out perhaps. But instead of having a bunch of loop cuts that we cut in here that create like all kinds of mess, now we have a higher density mesh. We can join it back to that one. So Control J. We can merge it right off the bat. That would be great, but a lot of times that ain't going to work now. You're going to have to do vertex snapping. And you're going to have to go through and try to combine these back together by doing knife cuts or whatever else into these areas and merging it all back together. You'll see a lot of it just shifts slightly. So it becomes something more like this now, or it's just a slight different shape overall. You have extra edges. Sometimes you don't need them. You can just take them and get rid of them again. Okay. You can just dissolve some things if you don't need them on either side, on the piece we just subdivided and applied, or on this one as well. Like this bottom edge, do we need this? Maybe, maybe not. I don't. And we want to work this all out a little bit more deliberately before we did that subdivision as well, because obviously we had some big issues down here. At the top we had worked more, and obviously it's better. So, right, but yeah, now we got kind of like places for these to belong or go to, anyways. So we can kind of shift them around and attach them. Rather cool that you can get away with this. Easier said than done sometimes, because like now the front side doesn't have same amount of segments. And if we start beveling this and moving it around, we could get away with it because we have the hood here to line up to, so we can use it as a guide. But it'd be really hard to do that otherwise. And so you might actually take like a section like this. You know, we could potentially at some point, if you were working on it, right? Might take a section like that, separate it. And this is where you can see, I'm going to keep corners, because look at that corner there. Subdivision, keep corners. Level 1 subdivision, apply. You can see where that goes. Join it back together, go back into edit mode. Oh, they match up now. Like, so, and we get that higher density that we wanted ultimately. Some of the edges might not be quite where we want, but they're close, right? We might have extras we don't need. Twice. You can do a lot of repair work in little sections and parts and pieces like this. It doesn't have to always be like remodeled manually the way you think it does. Happening right there is /. Okay, that's a little bizarre in that. What did I do? Sometimes you can delete a face and do a little bit of manual work. It doesn't hurt. We got this extra edge here, and we don't have it over here. Maybe we try to combine these. Look at a hole here. Hey, look at that. It happens. Get rid of this face. Sometimes when you do J to join, you accidentally just create an edge. So let's go through that, fix that. There we go. This loop here, I'm going to just place manually real quick. A little bit. This is going to connect, and then this is going to connect, right? And by the looks of it, edge is a little bit sketchy. Pull that down a tiny bit. Merge that to there. Merge that to there. There we got our quad now. Right, clean it up. You see there's a big hole in here. Machine tools, when you use the cleanup feature, you press 3. It highlights all of your open edges. So if you ever have holes, you'll know it. You can go back and you can find them a little bit easier. You just got a Z to X-ray it, right? Turn on X-ray and then look for it. So you can see we got a lot of holes left. We got a hole up here somehow. That's crazy. What is causing that? This one? Merge at last. Merge at last. Okay, are those done yet? Or can we move on from this area? All right. And yeah, so it's a little bit of a process, guys. Not the maybe not the answer you wanted, but it's the answer that I think some guys need. Like, don't be afraid of geometry. Don't be afraid of working it like this. It helps if you have a lot of experience with it, sure, but the more you model, the more you pick up these kinds of things. The speed comes with, you know, just practice of doing, you know, like actually working on projects. Because you don't want to spend all day correcting something like this. You're trying to make a vehicle model or something. You're not trying to spend all day here. Like this edge, I don't know where this is going or why. It goes over here in dead ends. Okay. get rid of that. Then we'll just bring that there. I think these are going to go up. Ooh, not that fast. Okay, that high even. And we go back to this corner now. Corner is going to make a little bit more sense. This edge doesn't maybe need to exist yet. I don't know yet. We'll get rid of it for now. Because I don't want to reattach it. I'd rather just loop cut it back in if I can. This is a nice little reduction happening here. I don't remember creating that, but maybe it was already there. Right, so we got this edge here now. It goes all the way through the back, connects, goes over. It connects into this area. But there's nothing over here for it, so we have to figure out if we're going to do a loop cut in that area. If we do, where does it go? Okay, let's just create an N-gon here real quick so we can just toss that in and not worry about it too much. You can always create, usually you can loop cut to an N-gon or a triangle and it'll stop, right? An edge flow like that or a loop cut. Blender made it some time ago where you can cut through them though. And so occasionally it will still cut through them. You got to watch out for that one when it happens. I don't think we need these. This is still something like an inset in here. I'm just going to get rid of it. Okay. We dissolve those two. This also probably not needed. If it is needed, we'll have to add it back in, which is still a pain. Better if you can control everything with the subdivision first and then come back to it. But I'm pretty sure we can do some kind of reductions in these areas. It's probably not really a big deal. If not, we can find a way to do, basically what it was doing was like an inset to begin with. So we'll be able to work that out. I like this though. This density here is not too bad. It's okay at the top too. I think they line up even. Yeah, so they're about evenly. Okay. That's not bad. These extra edges here on top, I don't know if we'll need all that. I'm pretty sure we'll need one, but maybe not all of that. And obviously some things are still not merged together. And so we'll want to go through and, just work these areas. This isn't connected yet, so just knife cut anywhere to that edge and then just merge them. Right. And so I didn't want to make this video run on too long. Obviously, you can see it can be an involved process to kind of get that nice balance that you're probably looking for. It's really hard to do it in these areas because of the diagonals. I still don't have it quite worked out. Maybe the best it could be, but it's getting somewhere at least, I guess. See, like every time you want to add another edge going out, we run into that situation where, yep, it's another edge coming out. So, maybe we try not to do that if we can avoid it. More like that. But yeah, now we still have the two edges that want to come out. So, I mean, did we find a way to work that? That works technically, I guess. Maybe not the best topology, but it's doable. Like this, we could try to work back further. So we'll have, like this is going to create an end pole. This is going to be, this is an end pole. Once you create an end pole, it stays an end pole. You got an E pole, end poles. So if we can figure out a way to work this back further, that would probably work really well. In our case, kinda, but not really, because if we take two of those edges and run them into it like that, it just creates another triangle. And so that's a little bit problematic because that's going to create a pole as well. But yeah, it does make it a little bit more simplified. So maybe we can roll with that or work that out and do some reductions in here as well. I mean, that's always a possibility. But for the most part, I don't think it's too terribly bad right now. We can space these a little bit better. It ended up with a pretty good result, I think. Just might need a cut in here. Those are, you can see the rectangular. But I personally, when I'm working, I'm usually going for bake mesh, right? I'm not worried about making perfect topology everywhere. That's a big difference. Because now we have like this little section. Both of these edges want to run through here. And we're kind of back where we started. Like we can add loop cuts, maybe. You can even use the, for example, on this one, you might get away with using the edge flow add-on and switching to edge, then using set flow. Like you could do that, but now the density here is more than it is here. And that causes reflection issues sometimes where the reflections kind of like dart off a little bit faster. So perfect squares is your better bet and really clean geo, which means we'll need to space this out somehow sooner or later. And we don't have an edge over here for it. But that edge might actually work in our favor a little bit because these are very rectangular over here as well. So cutting them in half doesn't seem to do too bad there, right? Even with it cut in half, it's still rectangular. But yeah, it's a balancing thing, guys. And that's really what it comes down to. You're going to spend a lot of time balancing models, especially if you're trying to make them as professional as possible. The way you start the project sometimes influences it heavily. You see here, we're trying to like correct issues that we were having more than anything else. And that is a big issue. A lot of these, I don't know. I'm going to dissolve that one. A lot of these, I think we can kill off over here. It might not be pretty how you do it, but you might be able to do it. So, for example, I don't want to shift it too far. But that's the edge that matters. This one doesn't, right? That's a quad if you dissolve it, but it's a pole as well. Okay? So it's not as pretty, but it's definitely maybe usable. And we might be able to get that in there. This one here, anytime you create a triangle, it creates an end pole. It's the same as doing the triquad. Not really that special in that sense. So like it's the same reduction. It's messy, but it's, it keeps this a little bit neater over here perhaps. We don't have this connected apparently yet. It's just like a fictional edge here. Delete that. Let's cut knife down here. Merge. I should combine that now. But the other one was disconnected too, I think. Maybe it's not. Hole here though. Where's that going? Oh, we could probably just remove that entirely. Like, if you want to use rectangles, use rectangles. If it doesn't hurt the model overall, use it. What's going on in here? Extra edge. Don't need it, maybe. Get rid of it. You can add vertical edge loops much easier than the horizontal ones much easier than the verticals. So that could work out well for you. Even a triangle is not the end of the world. You see, J will do that number. You got to be careful with that if they're not actually attached. I run into that problem quite a bit, so I'm sure some of you guys will run into it as well. Over here, obviously, could just send this back this direction, maybe. If we needed to. Or we could try sending it over the top here. This would just go to there now. So we'd end up with that. And eventually that'll go back all the way around to here. And I'm guessing it'll shoot up through there. So we'll just merge them. Yeah. So yeah, it's a big game of, solve the IQ puzzle. Try to remember the patterns that you see in subdivision and work them into this and make it happen, basically. This edge down here, it's not quite sharp enough. Maybe we want it to be a little bit sharper, And it ends in this corner like this. The way it ends in the corner is not bad, but I'm going to do a bevel, mouse wheel up once, do that, and then do that. On the other side, we'll just cancel it out right here. Okay. crunch it right there. And that may not be the correct answer because it creates the pole on the edge. But for like a boxier squared corner, it's not too bad. Kind of works out. So that gives us that nice crispness there at the bottom, right? So, yep. And ultimately, you notice something going on here. All of these edges are dense. So that's what's going on. Like that little dense patch that we had going up and down and left and right here. We're kind of doing that on purpose on the edges. That's what the bevels do anyways. And so that's why it looks as crisp and as clean as it does. And then the big surface areas, you don't usually use as much density, or you don't localize the geometry in that manner. So it works out a little bit better. But yeah, a little bit of time and energy and effort. You know, we can definitely spend more time in here, work this out. You know, try to get some of these edge loops from traveling through the mesh, collapsing them down, whether it's to, you know, triangles or whatever. If it works, it works. I mean, just use it. But if you're just going for like pure perfection, you're going to spend a minute on this just trying to figure out, you know, how to get it balanced out, right? You might do it like one way, it doesn't work. You try doing it another way, it may work better, but it might not work as good somewhere else on the model. And so you have to kind of go back and forth and just keep playing around with it and see what you can end up with anyways. This kind of stuff doesn't usually bother me though, once again, because I'm usually baking, right? And that's the case. It's not such a huge ordeal. Now, also, a really good idea here is to go look at models on marketplaces that have wireframe views, and you can see what they're doing with their models, right? Like how they're running their edge flows, things like that. A lot of times you're going to find that they don't do everything exactly the way you think they're doing it. They will use triangles and triquads, and they will do collapses, and they will have kind of random inset locations, if you would. So like a 3-to-1. So if I reduced here, well, let's try a different one. Let's say if I do like here, that's a bad spot too. Where can we get away with this at? Maybe do it right here. If I do this right here, dissolve that. And, okay. Now that's a 3-to-1, right? But it's an inset, is what it is. It's just basically an inset, like half of an inset. So when you look at those models, look for stuff like that. Look for those poles. Look for the E-poles. End poles with single vertex, 3 edges. E-poles are going to be 5 or more edges coming out of a single vertex. Those are dead giveaways of what's going on here. Like if this had an edge down the middle, suddenly it makes a whole lot more sense that this is, especially if we have another cut going here. Like this is the same topo of an inset. Okay? It's not anything different. And so like when you do triangles, it creates the poles. That's the same as a subdivided triangle. When you subdivide a triangle, it's like this, usually. Okay? Creates the pole in the middle. That's what it's doing automatically. So you have to understand those E-poles and N-poles and redirects. You know, like when you want to pick an edge and just send it in a different direction, maybe. Like, want this to go up. We can shoot it down to this corner now. That edge in the middle becomes redundant. This is that pole. This is that subdivided triangle topology right here. Okay, that's the pole in the middle still. That's the quarter of the inset. You see it all combines together. The end pole's huge. This is the best one to learn. E-poles are a little bit harder to manage, but they still have very useful effects because you can see that redirect here going up to the top. Actually makes this area quite nice, even though I didn't plan on doing that. But we need another edge going out the top now. So, yeah, pros and cons, right? But yeah, when you get comfortable with this, it's going to be a lot nicer because even though like I look at this mesh and I know it's going to be a pain because I've made similar things and it's these little tight intersections with these big sweeping curves and trying to get it all nice and neat together. It's tough. You can do this dirty as well using like regular, like you can use subdivision mesh, you can use voxel meshes, booleans, just go crazy, just get the exact shape you need. And then you can just retopo it as well, which can be quite good because then you don't worry about the shapes and the forms no more, and you only worry about those edge flows. So retopo is a great way of working. In our case here, I think recovering it is probably still the better answer, or restarting off of a higher density of this curve, maybe. But yeah, it's doable. And you can see it's starting to work out. And all that needs to happen now is this center section and kind of balancing it out and working it better. We'll end up with some really clean geo here without even really trying. Well, we'll be trying for it, that's for sure. But it won't be as bad as you probably think it would be. All these poles got to get cleaned up and merged in whatever else is going on down here that's not supposed to be happening. A lot of holes still left over. Apparently there's a lot of holes over here, huh? Whoops. How's that? Yeah, these little tight corners like this can be a real pain. Why's it got a hole in there? Come on. Oh, maybe back here, and that's just extending down to that way. Okay, so that whole edge, I'm guessing, is not quite merged. Just going to keep checking it until I get it all the way I want it. These aren't merged together either, apparently. That's probably merged. Yeah, it's the top one. That's so. Yeah, we try to run a loop cut on this side now. Lines up surprisingly with something. So good. Gotta worry about the top there, maybe. Which is probably why we had that top edge to begin with in here. But we could just loop cut it back in now. Maybe two of them. Okay. Loop cut, loop cut. Not gonna worry about them being perfect. Because I need that little bit of space so I can work with it, right? And then maybe we take all that and then use machine tools, Alt-A, and align top. Quite a bit of work, though. Rescuing shapes 101, right? Separate them into parts. Try to get the vertex counts to match. Or at least get them very close. And so that way you have less problems finding like what connects to. Like that reduction there actually, in a way, kind of hurts this area, I think. We'll just send it to a triangle for now, but we'll probably want to work that one out as well. What's going on here? Same deal, apparently. I'm pretty sure we can run these into these somehow. Not positive, but I'm pretty sure we can. Almost. That's going to be one of those areas where it does that little number that we were trying to avoid at the very start. Probably leave an N-gon in there. You see how the N-gon creates the E-pole? That might be okay in this case. I mean, that might work for you. I think it works out pretty well. But you don't always want to do that. You might still be better off using the triangle. I think that works better still. So that edge, if we can get rid of it, which, you know, may or may not be a thing, might be more ideal. You can always try to redirect one of them and send it that way. And then now it comes back to the other side over here. Okay, it runs into a triangle and it turns it into a quad. But it creates all kinds of crazy poles, but it's doing what it does anyways, so not too bad. Might be able to switch one of these edges with the other as well. That's the kind of like territory where a lot of you guys are going to really struggle because now you're trying to figure out like what you can change when and where and redirect the edges all the way across the model. It's really hard to do. You know, it's not like common sense at first, you know, just really paying particular attention to like every edge and the counts of them and how they balance and all kinds of other fun stuff, right? But you can see we've worked it quite a bit. I mean, it's a 40-minute video now, but trying to do it quick, try to make a quick video. But we're close. Like we're very close to being able to call this thing finished. What I would probably do is when I get to this point and like I really don't know what I want to do in this area. I have no idea. I'd take a break. I would save this file as whatever. I think that was mine, right? Replace that one. I would save it and just come back to it later and look at it. Like move on to another part of the vehicle perhaps. And then come back to this and try to think, you know, like what can I do to actually make this nicer or better? And then if I don't see the answer right off the bat again, you know, then I might be like, hey, ask some other people what they think. Like, where's my edge flow going wrong? What could be better? How would I work this out? Maybe even send off, maybe not the whole model, but just this part of a model to somebody and let them have a go at it and see what they come up with. Another thing you can try doing that's also quite good is you could use quad remesher. Just default settings usually with it subdivided like this, just let it run. Hopefully you don't have any sharp edges, otherwise it gets weird. Yeah, sometimes I let quad remesher have a go at it and I kind of see what it's doing and I think about incorporating this into my own setup here. So you can see like the edges flowing through from here to the top here, and then it's still, yeah, it doesn't really know what to do in this area as much, but I would say that's pretty good. Pretty good idea to run those around like that. The problem with quad mesh is it likes to take a flow and send it over an edge. So a lot of these are coming up out of that edge. That's not usually what you want to do, but overall, I'd say, yeah, we're not too far off from what it's trying to do, right? We're very similar. There's a pole, E-pole. And in some ways, ours is better already. Our biggest issue was this intersection. Even then, this could be probably collapsed in a different way, work better. Or some really clever tricks could happen. Whatever the case, I'd say we're doing pretty well. Save it for later a little bit. All right. Hope that video helps you a little bit on this kind of a project at least. Don't be afraid of the mesh. Don't be afraid of splitting things. Don't be afraid of applying a subdivision. Just have fun at it and just start merging and merging fast. Use machine tools for that, right? It's already got the shortcuts for it. It's just going to be like 1 and shift 1 usually for merging. And yeah, the more you do it, the more speed you pick up. You guys that want to be fast at it, just keep modeling. That's really the trick to it. Keep modeling, keep learning these patterns. Once you know them, they don't really go away. It just becomes like a game of like Connect 4 or something, right? Like that's really what it is. So have fun with it, all right? I'll check you guys out in the next video. Till then, take care, all right?